The very first case the other is Aaliyah Henderson. She has 2 counts of aggravated murder.
Good morning, Ms. Henderson. All right, so we're going to first hear from, regarding your bond, we're going to first hear from the prosecutor from the state.
With a breaking news alert.
It's no secret that it touches our hearts. Our officers are human just like everyone else, and they're their parents and grandparents, and it affects them as well.
Cleveland police have identified and detained a person of interest after making a horrific and disturbing discovery. Thanks for joining us for the news at 11. I'm Chris Fry. 2 young girls identified as half-sisters found buried in suitcases. Police have not released the name of the person they brought in for questioning, but records show that 28-year-old Aaliyah Henderson was booked into the Cuyahoga County Jail tonight for murder and child endangering. Neighbors telling 19 News she lived at the home where police detained someone earlier this evening. Here's Caitlin McCarthy with the breaking details.
Cleveland police investigators spent hours taking evidence from a home here on East 162nd Street in the Collinwood neighborhood. This is across the street from where the 2 girls were found in suitcases buried in shallow graves.
He unzipped it. A man walking his dog on a quiet Monday evening in Cleveland, Ohio, never expected his night to end like this. His dog caught a scent near a fence line and refused to move. No matter how hard he pulled, that dog was not leaving. So he looked. Pushed into the dirt at the edge of a field, right next to a school, in a neighborhood full of families, was a suitcase. Partially buried, like someone had tried to hide it in a hurry. He unzipped it. What he found inside would shake an entire city to its core. But here's the part that should disturb every single one of us. This didn't have to happen. There were warnings. There were phone calls. There were fathers begging the system to listen. Nobody did. So what exactly did he find in that suitcase? And who put it there? Welcome back to True Homicide Crimes, where we cover the true crime stories that demand to be told. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. We break down real cases, real facts, and real failures because these stories matter. Before we go any further, what state or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. Now, let's go back to Cleveland. Mila Chatman was 8 years old. She loved the color pink. She walked around like she owned every room she stepped into. Head high, smile wide. Her father, Deshaun Chatman, said she was happy-go-lucky. Always smiling. The kind of kid who made everyone around her feel good just by being there. She was convinced she was a princess. And honestly, nobody who knew her was going to argue with that. Amber Wilson was 10. Mila's older half-sister. Same mother, different fathers. Where Mila was the sunshine, Amber was the steady one. The big sister energy, the one who helped build the forts. And that's exactly what they were doing the last time anyone outside that home saw them happy. March 2020. Inside a living room somewhere in Cleveland, 2 little girls, Mila and Amor, building a blanket fort together, laughing, just being kids. That photograph is the last known image of both girls alive and well. Deshaun held on to that photo for 5 years. It was all he had left of his daughter. Here's what makes this even harder to sit with. Both girls were allegedly being homeschooled. That means no classroom, no teacher checking on them every morning, no school counselor noticing if something seemed off, no adult outside that home who was required by law to ask questions. To the outside world, Mila and Amor had simply disappeared, and nobody came looking. Now let's talk about the woman at the center of this case. Aaliyah Henderson was 28 years old. No criminal record, no prior charges, no history of violence on paper. At the time of her arrest, she had a place to live and was looking for a job. On the surface, nothing that would make you look twice. She was never married to Deshaun Chatman, Mila's father. They lived together for about a year after Mila was born. When that relationship ended, Henderson left, and she took Mila with her. Amar's father had been in a separate relationship with Henderson at a different point in time. When that ended, the same thing happened. He lost access to his daughter, too. Both fathers were now on the outside, and Henderson made sure it stayed that way. She moved constantly. No fixed address. Every time one of the fathers filed paperwork, the address on record was already out of date. Every phone number linked to her stopped working. Every trail went cold before anyone could follow it. She wasn't hard to find by accident. She made herself hard to find, on purpose. But here is where the story really begins. At some point after their relationship ended, Mila Chatman received a phone call from Aaliyah Henderson, and what she said stopped him cold. "Come get this crybaby-ass baby, or I'm a killer." Those were her exact words. About her own daughter. About Mila. Now, Deshaun had a choice to make. He could brush it off, tell himself it was just a frustrated mom having a bad day. Or he could take it seriously and do something about it. He took it seriously. What he called Child Protective Services and reported the threat. And that decision, that one act of trying to protect his daughter, is what ended his access to her completely. The moment Henderson found out he had called CPS, she cut him off. No more contact, no address, no working phone number, no way in. She vanished with Mila. And this time, she made sure Deshaun couldn't follow. Years later, when asked whether he thought Henderson was just a frustrated mother venting, Deshaun didn't hesitate. "I don't know if that was a frustrated mom or a deranged woman, but I'm going to go with the deranged woman." Think about that for a second. The very first warning sign came before any court filing, before any welfare check, before any of it. A mother threatened to kill her own child, and the system still couldn't save her. After that phone call, Mila Chatman did everything right. He filed for emergency custody. Not once, 5 times. He called Child Protective Services on multiple occasions. He requested police welfare checks. He went to court over and over again, putting his daughter's name on every piece of paper he could find. Every single door closed in his face. And while Deshaun was fighting for Mila, Amar's father was fighting the exact same battle at the exact same time. 2 different men. 2 different daughters. The same story. The same dead ends. The same silence. Every time one of them filed paperwork, the address on record for Henderson was already wrong. She had moved again. Every time a welfare check was requested, officers couldn't locate the family. Every phone number on file had already been disconnected. And by the time anyone tried to follow a lead, Henderson was already somewhere else. She stayed one step ahead, every single time. And the homeschooling made it worse. Because both girls were allegedly being taught at home, there was no school registering their attendance, no teacher noticing if they stopped showing up. No one legally required to check on them and report what they saw. That layer of protection, the one most children have without even knowing it, had been completely removed. When the fathers pushed harder, the system pushed back with the same answer every time. She has a home. She has a custodial parent. There is no legal basis to intervene. No documented evidence of harm. No grounds to act. Case closed. But here's the thing about that answer. Those 2 little girls were out there the entire time. He's living somewhere in Cleveland, allegedly being homeschooled, completely cut off from the outside world, and not a single agency, court, or welfare check was able to find them. 5 emergency custody filings, multiple CPS calls, welfare checks that went nowhere, 2 fathers who never stopped trying. A dog found what 5 years of paperwork could not. Monday, March 2nd, 2026. 6 o'clock in the evening. A man was walking his dog through the South Collinwood neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio. A regular evening. A regular route. Nothing about that night felt different, until his dog stopped. Right at a fence line, at the edge of a field near Saranac Playground, just steps away from Gin Academy, a school, the dog caught a scent and refused to move. No matter what the man did, that dog was not leaving that spot. So the man looked closer. Pushed into the dirt, Partially buried at the edge of the field was a suitcase. He unzipped it. He called 911. Officers from Cleveland's 5th District arrived at the scene. What they found inside that suitcase confirmed every fear. The remains of a young girl, buried in a shallow grave in a field next to a school, in the middle of a neighborhood where families walked and children played every single day. But detectives didn't stop there. They pushed further into the surrounding area. 25 feet away, another suitcase, another shallow grave, another child, 2 little girls. Same field, same method, 25 feet apart. Both girls were transported to the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's office, where examinations began immediately. Prosecutors would later describe their bodies as badly decomposed. At how long they had been in that field, nobody could say for certain. Here is what made this even more devastating. When officers checked the system that night, there were no missing children reports in the area matching either girl's description. No Amber Alert, no open case, no active search. These 2 little girls had been gone so long. They had completely vanished from the system. Nobody even knew they were missing. Before we go further, I need to pause right here. 2 little girls, no missing persons report, no one looking for them. Have you ever witnessed a case like this in your city, where the system completely failed a child? Tell me in the comments below. Now let's talk about what happened next. Cleveland's homicide detectives got to work immediately. They canvassed the entire South Collinwood neighborhood. They spoke to witnesses. They pulled footage from cameras in the area. Every single lead, every piece of information, every thread they pulled pointed back to one place. The 700 block of East 162nd Street. The same neighborhood. Barely half a block from the field where the 2 girls were found, directly across from where those suitcases had been buried in the dirt. Detectives built their case and obtained a search warrant. When they entered that home, they found Aaliyah Henderson inside, but they also found something else. A 3rd child, alive, in apparent good health. Right there in the same home. That child was immediately taken into the custody of the Department of Children and Family Services. The full details about that child have not been officially confirmed in public records. Or investigators spent hours inside that property. Neighbors stood outside watching as police moved in and out, carrying evidence. On Wednesday evening, just 48 hours after those 2 girls were found, Henderson was detained. She was initially charged with murder and child endangering. The following day, those charges were elevated. 2 counts of aggravated murder. Chief Dorothy Todd addressed the public and said, "Investigations of this nature require patience, precision, and discretion. Unlike what is often portrayed on television, every detail cannot be shared publicly. Certain information must remain confidential to protect the integrity of the investigation and ensure justice for these victims." Less than 48 hours. That is how long it took Cleveland's homicide unit to go from finding 2 children buried in suitcases to placing someone in handcuffs. The system had 5 years. The detectives needed 2 days. Friday morning, March 6th, 2026. Aaliyah Henderson walked into Cleveland Municipal Court for her arraignment before Judge Jeffrey Johnson. The hearing was brief. The words spoken inside that courtroom were not. The prosecutor stood up and said, "It is alleged in this matter that the defendant did cause the death of her 2 daughters, 8 and 10 years old. The badly decomposed bodies of the 2 little girls were found in shallow graves in Cleveland, in suitcases. I would ask for nothing less than a $2 million bond." Henderson's public defender pushed back. She pointed out that her client had no prior criminal record, no history of violence, or no prior charges of any kind. She had a place to live. She had been looking for a job. The defender asked for the most reasonable bond possible. Judge Johnson had heard enough. Given the nature of the allegations, as well as my concern for the safety of the public, bond will be $2 million. $1 million per count of aggravated murder. Henderson said very little during the hearing. She did not enter a plea. She was appointed a public defender and escorted out. Her next court date was set for March 17, 2026. As of that Friday morning, the cause of death for both girls remained officially pending. Autopsies had been completed, but results had not been released. The full timeline of what happened inside that home on East 162nd Street was still being built. The truth was still coming. By Thursday, March 5th, that field near Ginn Academy looked completely different. Flowers, candles, stuffed animals, balloons, photographs, all left by people who had never met Mila or Amor, but felt the weight of what had happened in that dirt. The following day, Friday, March 6th at 4 p.m., the community gathered at the intersection of East 162nd Street and Midland Avenue for a vigil. Neighbors standing together in the same field where a dog had refused to leave a fence line just 4 days earlier. Amor's grandmother, Nichelle Wilson, stood at the memorial site with her hand pressed to her face. No words. Just grief. Deshaun Chatman stood in that same field, holding the last photograph he ever had of his daughter, the one from 2020. Mila and Amor, building a blanket fort, laughing, just being kids. He spoke directly to Henderson, not to the cameras, to her. I hate you. You're selfish. You're a monster. You had help. You had support. You didn't want to take it. Then his voice broke. I just feel useless. I couldn't save my baby. He also said this. I love both of them. Both of them don't deserve this. I remember them building tents in the living room, making pallets on the floor, having a girls' night, just being kids. Cleveland City Councilman Mike Polensek stood before cameras and said what the whole city was feeling. What kind of monster demon would do this to two children? Just throw them away like garbage? A neighbor, a mother herself, struggled to find words. These are little babies who won't graduate, won't walk down the aisle, won't have their own children. Their lives are gone, snuffed out. Now let's lay this out clearly, because this part matters. Was Deshaun Chatman called CPS after Henderson threatened to kill Mila? That was the first warning. It was documented. It was reported. And nothing came of it. After that, he filed for emergency custody 5 times. 5 separate filings with his daughter's name on them. 5 times a court received paperwork saying, I cannot find my child, and I am afraid for her life. Amor's father was doing the same thing at the same time. 2 fathers, 2 daughters, filing documents, making calls, requesting welfare checks, and hitting the same wall every single time. The welfare checks went nowhere because Henderson kept moving. Every address on file was already outdated by the time anyone tried to use it. Every phone number was already disconnected. She relocated constantly, and the system had no way to keep up. Then there was the homeschooling. Both girls were allegedly being taught at home. That single decision removed them from the one place where adults are legally required to notice and report signs of abuse or neglect. No teacher, no school counselor, no one checking on them every single day. That door was closed too, and every time a father pushed for answers, the system responded the same way. She has a home. She has a custodial parent. There is no legal basis to intervene. No documented evidence of harm. Case closed. But a threat to kill a child was documented. Multiple CPS calls were documented. 5 emergency custody filings were documented. 2 fathers actively searching for their daughters. That was all documented. And it still wasn't enough. So here is the question that nobody has answered yet. At what point does the system stop being underfunded and start being negligent? Because if even one of those filings had been taken further, if one welfare check had actually found those girls, would Mila and Amor still be alive today? Mila and Amor cannot be brought back, but their story can change what happens to the next child. Here is what needs to change. right now. 1. When a parent threatens to kill their child, that is not a footnote. It is an emergency. Any documented threat against a child must trigger an immediate, in-person welfare check within 24 hours. No exceptions. 2. Homeschooled children need oversight. If a child is being taught at home, a trained child welfare professional must conduct a face-to-face visit every single year. A form submitted on paper is not enough. Eyes on the child. That is the only standard that matters. 3. When a custodial parent keeps moving and cuts off contact, that needs to raise a flag, not close a file. Courts must have access to tools that can track current addresses through official records so that children cannot simply disappear. 4. Non-custodial parents deserve a fair fight in family court, legal aid, faster hearings, and equal consideration, because a father who cannot afford a lawyer should not lose access to his child because of it. 5. Multiple CPS calls about the same household must be treated as a pattern. Each call should build on the last, not be closed as a separate, unrelated case. 6. Communities are the last line of defense. If something feels wrong with a child in your neighborhood, say something. I make the call. You might be the only person who does. Mila and Amor deserved better. Their legacy can be changed. A man walked his dog past a fence line on a Monday evening. His dog stopped. He looked. He unzipped a suitcase. And that one moment uncovered what 5 years of court filings, CPS calls, and welfare checks never could. 2 little girls who just wanted to build blanket forts and have girls' nights. 2 fathers who never stopped fighting for them. And a system that kept closing the door until there was nothing left to protect. Mila Chatman was 8 years old. Amor Wilson was 10. They were princesses. They were sisters. They deserved so much more. Rest easy, girls. If this story moved you, share it. These girls deserve to be remembered. Subscribe so you don't miss our follow-up when this case goes to trial. And tell me, what do you think justice looks like for Mila and Amor?